Good evening and welcome to Forge Podcast. I am the Wild Man. With me as
This
always.
is DJ Tiano, and this week we're bringing our guest back from last week, Will, aka Doc, aka Hafiz. FYI, what's up, man? How you doing this week?
Excellent, brother. Salute to y'all. Salute to y'all. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Honored to have you on again. This week we're gonna our episode is dubbed communication, so we're gonna talk about the importance of communication, the detriment of miscommunication, difficulties of communicating one with one another. Doesn't necessarily have to be, in a relationship with a female or a male or whoever you coincide yourself with. It could be a business relationship. It could be just a friendship, all the above. But first, Will, if you are used to our podcast, you'll know what we do is at the end of every podcast, I leave Wild Man here with a quote, and we state that quote, and we go over the quote. We kind of break it down to what it means to us. It's just an every episode thing that we do. So last week's quote was from Confucius: "A man who has committed a mistake and doesn't correct it is committing another mistake." Wild Man. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. I would say I would take from that from me that you're letting something go by. You're not taking responsibility for a mistake. Instead of fixing it, you're letting it go. I mean, we could kind of change that and take that quote into the planet with our fathers and our mothers. Then it fixed things that happened back then, and now we're having to pay for it. So that's double mistake.
What do you think, Will?
I take that as you're not willing to grow, and you're not willing to learn either. So a mistake is part of learning. So you don't learn unless you make the mistake. If there's no mistakes made, then you're really not growing. You're not evolving. You're not adding anything into
Exactly.
the ingredients.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's like Jordan. He says, how many misses I had to miss, how many buckets I missed to get to the point where I succeed. How many games I missed, or I lost. To get to all those championships that he's won. So yeah, that's what I took away from it too. It's basically if you don't correct yourself, if you're not ready for growth, then obviously you're making another mistake. All right. That's what we got for this week for the quote. So we're gonna get into communication.
Yes.
Pretty much communication is the operation of everything that we do as humans. I said in the past podcast that us humans, we sit on top of the ladder because out of all the species on this planet is because of our ability to communicate with one another. And it doesn't necessarily mean just vocal or communicating through language. Humans communicate through body language, through the whites in our eyes, through the definition of our eyebrows, how our eyebrows raise and stuff like that. You want to add something to this, Will? Like, why is communication? Why, just overall, what is communication and why is it important for us as human beings?
Communication. Basically, what communicating is, or communication is kind of like relaying something that you want to somebody else to not know, but you trying to when you communicate with someone, you want to understand. And to be completely honest with you, vocal communication is a very low form of communication. Um, and as humans, we have evolved to learn how to communicate vocally, but you know, going back more towards the beginning, communication wasn't vocal; it was telepathic.
Yep, I've heard.
And
Yep, I've heard that.
that's why in the animal kingdom, people think that animals communicate vocally, but they don't. Animals communicate telepathically as well as with their body language and energy and different signals that they send off. And that's how humans are supposed to communicate because we are also mammals, land creatures or land animals. So we're really not supposed to communicate with vocal vocal communication. We're supposed to communicate on a different level, but somewhere along the lines of evolution and translation, we're not even going to get into it. That like gift was lost.
Yeah, well, so social media has had like a complete backspin where we're like completely in touch with anybody. We can be in touch with anybody all the way across the world, except for it's kind of sent us backwards a little bit. um you feel me when I say that? So we have the utmost ability to contact anybody in this whole world through social media and whatnot. But um, what you'll hear from a lot of people is that we've gone backwards with the evolution of social media and the way that we talk to each other, the way that we express our feelings, and so forth. Would you agree with that too as well?
Um, I would agree, and I would also disagree because I see the pros and the cons and like everything. So social media, yes, it has done that, but it also has bridged a gap that has been there for a very long time, and it has allowed um, people to reach the world.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I would
absolutely.
never be able to reach anyone from anywhere else if it wasn't even the for technology itself. So it's a there's a pro and there's a con, and the con definitely outweighs the pro if you look at it in terms of what's
I
going on.
I feel the con always outweighs, the negative. So the positive will always outweigh the negative, except for the negative is more seen. You know what I mean? Like people people tend to gravitate towards the negative because it's controversial, because there's more drama and whatnot, and so I believe that that negativity will always outshine positivity, but positivity will always conquer and be above negativity, because there's more people out there with a positive outlook, and the negative ones are just in there in between trying to bring us down. And that's them
Because we
communicating.
see that.
Yeah.
That's all we see is the negative. Nobody sees. I mean, you look. That's why I stopped cable. Kevin had cable for at least 15 years. Stopped watching news. I hate the news because all we hear is bad, bad,
Yeah.
bad, bad, bad. You don't ever hear any good. I don't even know when the last time I heard good on the news,
Yeah. Well,
outside
Yeah,
of seeing some hot weather chick. You know,
it's a form of control.
yeah.
it goes back to we had an episode about human decency, and we were talking about how like natural disasters
Mhm.
will bring us together as a whole collectively. It's the most powerful we ever usually get, right? So um when
That's bad
and
that it
then the
takes that.
news will always put that negative spin on it. So I used Hurricane Katrina as an example, right? So Hurricane Katrina happened. We all bonded together. We all came together. That was seen, right? A little less than a week later, they were spinning the stories off. The stories where people were getting raped and murdered, and people were killing people inside the Superdome and all this stuff. When all in the end, that never really panned out. There was fake stories being blown up. All the looting and all that stuff. I'm sure there was a little looting going on illegally, but a lot of the looting was actually the community coming together. Even like the police and everybody were coming together um, to loot. They weren't looting; they were gathering supplies for survival at that point, and it got spun out of control because of the media. So again, that kind of all goes
I
back to
feel with
communication.
what Will was saying earlier about the de-evolution, that's a huge part of it. Like I said, with that, it takes something of that significance to bring us together. Other than that, we're just separate. We're all like screw you, screw you. And like I was telling DJ last week, or on a weekly basis, we talk. This is why other countries are look at us and they laugh because all the other countries, when they do something, it's either for their city, their town, it's the betterment of their country for their people. Over here, we're kind of just like screw everybody. I want for me. It's just me, me, me. And the only time we come together is when something bad happens.
Unfortunately,
That's
unfortunately.
bad.
So you were
Yeah,
talking about that gap, right? The gap that there is for the social media, that it's kind of brought that gap closely together. And I feel like in communication, um there is there usually tends to be that gap. So if you're in a circle of friends, right, you start to succeed more and more over those friends. There tends to be that more and more gap between you and your friends, because you're aiming at success, and they further themselves away from you because they fear they fear what might come with that, or they just separate themselves because they no longer feel like they're on their level. I did some research on this. This is called the success gap. Have you ever heard anything about this in your readings?
Yeah.
Yeah, the success gap. So I think we need to do our best, as human beings when we start to succeed, to close this gap, to communicate, just to communicate
Mhm.
better with those around us that feel like the need that they need to separate or get away from you because of the success. We need to somehow close that gap. So as an example, I used this guy that took over Coca-Cola. He was the CEO for Coca-Cola. Um, he could have he took over the leadership role. He could have just went to his office and ran the business just like it's always been ran, right? And continued the success from that. But this gentleman instead, he traveled the world. He met every, CEO and upper classman in the Coca-Cola business to see how what grinds, what pushes them along, what why they're gaining success in other countries, and why they're at the level of that point in the business. So it's just closing that gap. You agree with that as well?
I agree with it. But I don't think the gap. I think the gap is. I think people look at the gap more so as you know, success as far as things that you do or like mountains that you climb and places that you get to. But I think the gap comes from energy shift because as you climb and you succeed in these things, your energy changes. And when your energy no longer resonates, when you no longer have anything to offer, or, like for instance, when I used to smoke weed, right? When I stopped doing that, most of my friends and everyone just stopped calling me, period,
Because
because
yeah,
there wasn't anything that
for
resonated,
them.
and
Yep.
that was just what resonated. So as I've grown, I've learned to see that it is those things that you do, but it's also a shift in your character and the growth, you
Yeah.
know, like, going back to the Confucius, that's a mistake that we make.
Why do you think that is, though? Do you think they're afraid to rise with you and keep that energy to keep you as a friend? Or do you feel that they're just become lazy and complacent? They're just, I don't want anything else. This is it. Do you think that's all? Do you
I
think that
think
in
I
there
think
they
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Let them get it.
But do you think that they're just so set with what their life is, and they think this is I can't do anything else. This is all life has to offer. There's they look and let's say they watch TV. No, life has nothing else to offer for me. So should I just try to rise with my friend, or should I just sit here and then disappear into my bitterness?
I think it's fear.
Okay.
Because the one thing that people fear most is, one, the unknown, and it's also change.
Mm-hmm.
People
Yes.
don't like to change. Um, and people don't, people, and it's fear and it's comfort. People are comfortable where they are. So, if you, had a slave and you tell that slave, you're a slave, this is what you could do, this is what's happening. If that slave is comfortable being a slave, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that you do that's going to change their perception. So it's also perception as well. It's the comfort of their perception and the comfort of them not having to change. It's the comfort of everything being um, a circle, a constant circle, and just a constant. People want to keep constant, 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 and they're afraid of change.
All right, now going back, digressing back into communication, seeing that this episode is about that, and while we're on the topic, do you think that there's a lack of communication between those friends when one starts to succeed and the other one starts to part ways with them? You think there's a lack of communication? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too.
The communication just it's just falls to the wayside. I mean, they don't communicate hardly at all anymore after that, because what are you? There's nothing to communicate about.
Yeah, but if it's got to be more than that one thing that brought you together as a friend. You can't just, oh, we have this in common. We're best friends. There's got to be something else that, hey, you like this, some other kind of common ground that you guys had.
I mean, the
Besides,
common ground is our other friends.
Yeah.
That's honestly to me, like growing up with Ray and everyone else, the only common ground other than what we did was all of our other friends. There was no other common ground. I mean, there was things that we were interested in.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. That's the common ground. Like you like to like rap. Ray used to do a little bit of that from what I remember the conversation being.
Right.
Wasn't so.
So it's things that you are interested in, right?
Mhm.
But it's not. It's more of an interest.
Okay.
Like, people are like, oh, they're interested in it. Okay, they'll listen to something, or they'll go out and rap and try and record and things of that nature. But they only do it because you're doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you don't do it with them, then they don't do it.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's sometimes the scenario. I think sometimes, interest can bring people closer together. For instance, I have a gentleman over here that we're about to bring on later in this episode. I've only known him for maybe the past 3 years, and some people that I've known, for 10 years, I feel like I no longer know those people anymore. You know what I mean? And then here comes this dude. We met each other through the passion of DJing, through through us both being engaged with the DJ thing. And there was plenty of other people that we could have met within this circle of DJs and whatnot. But for some reason, we gravitated towards each other. It was more, the fact that our body language, our communication was real similar. As a matter of fact, the first time that we ever met face to face, we knew of each other. We never really talked. We show up for this gig and we both got on the same gear. I mean, same tie, same like checkered shirt. And this isn't no just a regular flannel like Wild Man's got on over here. We were like, actually we were all dripped out. So that kind of drew us closer that night. And then after that, it was just like instantaneously, like we've been, he calls me in the mornings just to say what's up, saying back, we communicate better than people I've known for 10 years. So
All right. So real quick, let's switch for the next interesting part of this. Let's switch to one side of the equation. Why do you think that, or what do you think has happened to decrease why men find it difficult to communicate either with each other or with women? Why do you feel that is?
You're asking me?
yep.
No,
So
the
I think
dude behind you.
there's somebody behind me.
I know. Yes, you. Yes.
I think it's I think it man, I don't want to get like too far deep here, but
Feel free, man.
Yeah, get deep.
That's
so
what the
this
podcast is
goes
about.
all the way back to the womb.
Okay, we're getting
All
real
right.
deep.
Well, me, I don't think it gets any deeper than that.
So in each trimester, the baby, is that what you call the infant or whatever, they learn things. It's not just the development of the brain, the bone development. It's emotional development, but it's also communication. It's the second trimester is the communication of the baby, and you can take it a step back further from that. Even the conception of the female and the male conceiving affects the baby. So, for example, if a man lays down with a female and they conceive a child, if that man is thinking of another woman while conceiving, the child will have bonding issues with other people. And that will affect the communication because that emotion is instilled in the semen when it's transferred. So I think that men have it Not to go all the way far back, but I think that in men that men have along the years as women have been removed from most history and most things.
Hmm.
And then, it's like a man's world and this, that, and the third. Like, I think men kind of put themselves on a platform, and the humility is lost and it's overtaken by pride.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, people that are very prideful can talk to other people, but when there's more humility, you find a sense of being able to learn with every interaction that you have, rather than I know everything already.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So it is interesting. I'm gonna have to do some Google research on that to check
That's
out
why
the.
we brought Will
I'll
on,
get
man.
my
Because
goulashes because you went deep. I'm gonna, I'll get a dive suit. We'll hook it up. But
that's why we brought you on, man. We knew that you can offer some pretty interesting and knowledgeable things to the podcast. Definitely
Appreciate it.
some food for thought. Um, with that being said, man, would you agree that the ultimate communication skill is to inspire others?
Um,
Because we're constantly trying to grow as human beings, as we were kind of stating earlier, like growth and like so as soon as you step in the room and if you inspire that room, would you consider that like a higher up ability to communicate with others, the fact that you can shed this inspiring view on things?
this awe when you walk into a room, people are magnetically attracted. They want you have like a magnetic attraction. They want to be around you. It's because of the personality too. So yes, if what DJ's saying.
I think so, yes. But I think communication is more about understanding. If that's what the person understands, because for me, it all goes back to perception. Like, if your perception is on a certain way of perceiving things,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get the inspirational aspect of the communication. Excuse me, but if the perception is always about growth, then I think you're right. Yes, I think that is inspiring, because inspiration can be you can sprinkle inspiration on everything.
So this is
I like the
I
sprinkles right.
I pulled this bit of information off of because I listen to a lot of motivational speakers. I listen to a lot of just inspiring things like this, and a lot of them will tell you this throughout their speeches. They'll tell you that most people want to be inspired. Most people, depending on whatever their outlook, whatever their goal in life, whatever everybody wants to be inspired for something, to do something, because ultimate success is literally happiness in the eye of the beholder. Um, that's what most people will tell you too. Um, so that's where I got that from. That's why that question came up.
Gotcha.
Um, so let's see here. Would you agree that every person is either a plus or a minus when it comes to communication? Like, okay, so I know a positive versus
Okay.
a
All
negative.
right. Gotcha. I
So
gotcha.
when someone walks in a room for the first time when you meet them, can would you agree that you can kind of almost by the end of this time you spent with this person, can you pretty much pin them as a positive or a negative person through just
Oh
communications
yes.
of body language and communications of and like we said, language and speech is the lowest level of communication. You would agree?
Absolutely. I agree. You can make it. As soon as somebody walks in the room, you don't even have to say anything to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's usually so kind of what I use an example is this. So when you go to a family get together, when you got both sides of the family, right? And everybody's sitting in their table of whoever they're comfortable with. You know what I mean? They don't ever attempt, not everybody, but most people won't attempt to get outside of their comfort zone because they don't feel comfortable at that table because they don't know that person, and their communication is,
Hmm.
whether it's physically off or they hear the stuff that they're talking about and they just don't, you know, they can't they can't
Reject.
connect with it.
People fear rejection too. That's another issue why people don't talk to people because of rejection.
Yeah, and I can say that I can. I'm a prime example of that because when I was a kid, I always thought I was the smallest, the weakest, the slowest, all the above. I always thought that stuff, so I always thought I was instantly going to be rejected. But as I got older, I knew this wasn't true, and I came into my own and I started communicating. Shit, I talk with the people at fast food place like while I'm waiting for my food. They're like, "Yo, is this dude ever gonna shut the fuck up?" Because I communicate so well with everybody now. You know what I mean? Um, it's just it's kind of something that I've grown into with growth, and I've realized that communication is key to networking. It's key to get where you need to go. It's key to accomplishing your goals. So
Yeah, but at the same time, when we're trying all this communication, I think it's changed a little more so now, as Will stated earlier, the perception of everything. Everybody's perception is different.
it's different.
They're
Correct.
trying to cancel this, they want to cancel that because it hurts my feelings in some way form. Sometimes you just want to slap somebody. I mean, it's you
I'm sure our next guest can weigh in on this. He
but
definitely we
it's
talk
just
about this all the time and he's
it's
very opinionated about this. So
it's just like, come
definitely
on.
conversation we want to
Oh
bring
yeah,
up in
we
our
could we
next.
could do another, but it's just like, all right, this one has done this, so and so did that. Okay, unless you have, it goes back to that old saying, unless you've got something good to say, shut
Don't
the
say
fuck
nothing.
up.
I
You
don't think that's
know,
how it went, bro.
no,
But
well, that's how it should have went. I mean, no. Every time you do something or somebody does, there is no need. Oh, this would have been great if you did this. Oh, this would have been the bomb if you did this. No. Oh, this was good. Thank you. Just be grateful. It's that simple. If you could help, don't cut something down. I run into so many people on a daily basis. They feel the need just to throw one in there because they
hate
hate,
their life.
they're bitter, and they suck at life. Not that they hate life,
Not only
they
do they suck
suck
at
at
life, they
it.
suck at it so bad that they want to suck the
Yeah,
life out of other people, and
they can't stand
that's
to
their
see.
form of communication.
And they're going along with like your people with losing friends. I think that's what it is. People, they think, all right, so let's take Doc. He did a couple tracks, laid down an album, whatnot. So now, because of his positivity, his confidence, he's up here. So this one automatically thinks, oh, well, he must think he's better than me. No, he just knows he's better than he was before. So it's like, why shoot the negative or stop talking? Why you should be, oh man, oh that's awesome. You did what you did, man. You always said you would. That's awesome.
And that's usually how we all
You
end up
know,
weeding out. We weed out who benefits us in life, and that's a huge part of communication too. Because if you stick yourself around these people, I know people who stick themselves around. I don't. They won't come out and say this, but I know people who stick themselves around people who have no way of bettering life because it makes them feel better about
they
themselves.
feel superior to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a
that's
damn shame.
yeah, it is.
All right, well, one last thing I want to include you on in because I know I just know you and I've known through the past
I just know
with your
you.
wife and everything. We're gonna get into intimate relationships and communications with that. And I know above all that you put your woman ahead of everybody. And I just want to hear from your point of view. How important is it to communicate with your loved one, someone who you've been with for such a long time, and how detriment it could be, with miscommunications and whatnot.
It's very important. I mean, just to shed some light, communication is something that I struggle with a lot. Because of my upbringing. So my upbringing, I was always alone, and always I was always alone. I always had to figure things out ever since I was little. My sister wasn't there, brother wasn't there, mom was doing something else. I always was alone, so I always was by myself in my head, all the time. And as an adult, that has came with.
Mm.
So now in a relationship or in a marriage, I have to like literally force myself because this is who I am now. Like it's been this way for a
For so
long
long.
time.
Mhm.
You're not the only one, bro, because even though we
Right.
had different upbringings and we had different things, believe it or not, I was that same dude. Even though we had different,
Right.
we had different reasons. My brothers were older, they were out of the house. My mom was doing her own thing because she already did the two kids, and I was kind of, I was that kid that was creative enough to sit in a room and figure things out and do things on his own. And my dad was always off doing business. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm right there with you, and I find that same issue at home. Um, it's not so much blocking that other person out, but I need my own headspace sometimes, or else I'm just not. I don't feel complete. Like if I don't have a certain amount of hours to myself at night, like just away from everybody. I don't care who
Right.
it is.
It's almost like you're comfortable there. Like that, that's my this is my space. You know what I mean? This is where I'm most comfortable at is in my own space. So communication, I would say that it's the most important thing in any relationship. It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter if it's with a significant other, if it's with somebody else. My mom told me a very long time ago, because I'm very quiet too when I first meet people, and I don't really talk a lot because um,
Since when?
I mean, because I just don't
He is
really.
really reserved. I agree.
He wasn't reserved at the cemetery.
Well,
Let
that's
me
because he
tell.
was. It's because he
That's
worked
because
by you and
that's
he went
because I
public.
knew everyone.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
But when it comes down to like if I'm in a crowd of different people, like I see myself now as I don't like to just sit around and talk. Like that's something that I have a very big problem doing is just sitting down and just shooting the shit. Like I want to talk
It's
about
You want to
because
solve
it's
something.
because you want to solve the universe, like
He
me.
wants to solve something. Okay. So it's not
right.
that you don't want to just do mindless talk. You want something that you, all
I
right,
want
let's talk
something
about
with
this.
substance.
Yeah.
I pretty much open up conversation when I meet people. I'm like, yeah, I'm not one to talk about the weather. You know what I mean? You want to talk about astronomy or numerology or something like that, I'm game. But you know, we even talk about music because that's an endless conversation in itself. So, all right, well, I don't want to consume any more of your time. I know you're a busy man. You got your family life, and you got to go communicate with your wife, correct?
That's
So,
right.
we're gonna let you go. As always,
She's going to
it's
bag
great
him.
talking to you. Yeah,
She's going to bag him.
she's gonna bag you up if you don't get off.
Bag me up, telling you black bag.
Exactly. So yeah, man, we'll talk about future episodes. We'll get you back on here. As always, you bring knowledge to the table, and we're about uplifting people, and whatever knowledge you can bring to the table to uplift people, we're all about it, man. So thank you for the interview today.
Appreciate y'all, man. Salute the kings.
You're
All right,
right,
man. Have a good
man.
one, brother.
All right, y'all. Peace, love, and light.